Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Ms. Washington. How are you? I'm good. Let's go ahead and get seated and settled. I'm sure there's a few more people walking in. I would like to thank the 40 Texans that are at the conference to all attending our session today. Those of you that are not from Texas, the rest, if you don't know them, they are from Texas because they're all right here. So. Hook 'em horns. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us at the late hour. It has been a long day. I don't know about you, but that 7:30 a.m. breakfast call time was a little early. Especially after 2 years of pandemic when you could just roll out of bed before you get to your desk. So, so thank you for being here this afternoon and joining us today to kind of learn what we are doing here in Texas, where we have been and where we're going. My name is Kim Coffrin. I'm the Director of Early Childhood Education for an organization called Children at Risk. We are a statewide advocacy organization that looks at data and coalition building and listening to stakeholders that then informs our policy and our advocacy work here in the state. So we are thrilled to be part of this conversation and be here with my esteemed colleagues. So I'm going to let us all introduce ourselves and then we'll get started. I will say we'll stay up here with the mics for our online friends. We have 4 of you online. Hello and good afternoon to all of you online. So Shay.
I'm Shay Everett. Some of y'all heard from me this morning. I'm Senior Advisor for Childcare and Early Learning at the Texas Workforce Commission, which is our state's childcare CCD. Okay, it's the end of a long day, but we do subsidies and QRIS, and we just hired a shared services coordinator to help us with shared services at sort of a statewide level across our state. And so you may see her around here. Her name's Bethany. Anyway, happy to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Larissa Wilkinson. I am the Director of Professional Learning and Program Innovation at Pre-K for SA, neighbors with Austin down in San Antonio. We operate 4 educational sites that serve over 2,000 4-year-olds. We also operate a pre-K through 2nd elementary school in one of our partnering districts, and very excited that in the upcoming year, we'll be welcoming 3-year-olds and opening our first EduCare site, which is exciting. We also have a professional learning team that offers free professional learning for educators birth through 3rd grade throughout the city. And then we also allocate $4.2 million annually as competitive grants to our partnering districts and child development centers across San Antonio, and are also working on a shared services alliance that we'll talk about today.
Wow, that's a lot.
I was gonna say, follow that,
Yeah,
Kathy.
a lot of cool things. Hi, I'm Kathy McCourse. I'm Vice President for Success by 6 at the United Way for Greater Austin. So I'm local. In that role, I lead the Austin Travis County Early Childhood Coalition and a strategic plan. And I oversee our programmatic work within the United Way for Greater Austin, which includes a pre-K partnership hub, which is an in-district charter with the Austin Independent School District that I'll talk about. And we are launching a shared services hub for Austin Travis County, but unlike San Antonio, we do not have a dedicated revenue stream within our city. So we don't have anything else going on.
That's not quite true. They've got lots going on in Austin. So, all right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started and get into all right, advance the slides. Where did they go? See? Really, the buttons aren't here. There it is. Got it. There it goes. All right. I just had to find the buttons. So they weren't showing up. They're hiding. So we just did our welcome. We are going to, I'm going to walk you kind of through the history of shared services in Texas and where we have come from. Shay is going to give us our statewide perspective and where we are going. And then Larissa and Kathy will both talk us through what they're doing at their local communities. And then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. So with that, so how did we get started? So back in 2017-ish, the W.K. Kellogg Foundation gave Children at Risk a grant to look at shared services and what was happening in the state, which really was not much of the time. And so in January of 2018, we developed this report that really got this conversation started, or more intently started, with our colleagues and our collaborations across the state, as we looked at all the different cities. As you know, Texas is big. And so as we looked at shared services, we really wanted to find out how we could be a statewide system, but knowing that all the different idiosyncrasies between the different communities. What happens in El Paso is much different. What happens in the Panhandle, what happens different in the Valley to Houston to East Texas, et cetera. So this report really kind of gave us a foundation of where to start and where to go. With that money, we also developed some great resources. One of them was this video, which I'm going to show you here in just a second. And then we also did a series of webinars. So as people started to learn about shared services, we put some resources on the web that people could just use and go and watch the webinars for free as they kind of learned each of those communities. Those of us that know shared services get it, but we also know it can be hard to explain to those that don't. And so we really wanted to get some tools out there to really give that foundation for people. So let's see if this technology works. And
I wear so many hats, and I'm on a lot of times time constraints. So by being a part of the team, I know you have my back.
Most of the directors and owners I know, we do everything from the front end to the back end to the classrooms, like I say, to the buses, to plumbing, janitorial, we do it all. But with the shared services, allowing them to help us set everything up has been very instrumental.
Meet Sophia, Grace, and Rebecca. They are all small business owners. They each own and operate childcare centers. They are passionate about giving their children the highest quality care possible. But running a small independent business can be hard. Looking for the best prices on services and goods can be frustrating. And many childcare providers end up spending more time and money than they need to simply because they are operating on their own. With shared services though, childcare providers work together and use their combined power to save time and money on things like supply purchasing, teacher prep and professional development, and back office support. Saving time and money means that Sophia, Grace, and Rebecca have more time and resources to invest back into their businesses and to do what they do best, serve their children and families.
Just everything that I need to sit down to do that I cannot do because some days I have to get up because I'm the cook, I'm the bus driver, whatever, I'm the teacher, classroom teacher.
The support team is there. They're not only are they're flexible, and they're willing to go that extra mile for me.
Shared services have been shown to be effective in places that have tried them. For example, shared services can help save your business thousands of dollars per year, save over 30 hours per month of your time, improve child outcomes, pay teachers higher wages and benefits, increase family engagement, and achieve quality milestones.
What helped the shared services come for me is just being there, holding my hand, having patience with me, knowing that we're going in the right direction, but I might not be there yet.
I would encourage anyone to be a part of this. It's a wonderful resource. It's wonderful having the networking opportunity and other people to ask questions and to seek assistance and help from.
It's something that I wanted to do, and I'm excited about being a part of the program.
Shared services help the entire community by supporting working families who need childcare, promoting school readiness, and boosting small businesses. To learn more, visit childrenatrisk.org/shared services or
yeah, you don't even know that. All right. So just an example of the resources we put out there as we started having these conversations in Texas. And thank you, Sherry Anderson. You helped recruit those wonderful directors, and they're still part of our coalition and still active. So good to see their faces. So the learning didn't stop there. We really continued to, I don't know why this audio thing, there it is. Let me get rid of that little thing. Go away. There it is. So we went to op exchange conferences. Surprise, surprise. They helped us. We partnered with Opportunities Exchange and provided TA for us as we continue to learn about the different shared services and models and types and where do we start and how big. Do we start with 100? No. Do we start with 10? Yes. So, and what was realistic to make those changes? We looked at individuals and state teams, looking at stakeholders. Local workforce boards are, like Shay said, our CCDBG dollars go through our Texas Workforce Commission that gets funneled to 28 local workforce boards in Texas. So looking at, we worked with a lot of them individually and they're right now a big part of where our hubs are housed. And then vendor staff, looking at our vendor staff and how we can, because we know they're part of that solution. And we continue to get TA from Opportunities Exchange and continue to learn and grow. So we set out with our main goals. Go away. I don't want that go away normally. Anyway, see, now I'm gonna mess it up. All right. Again, our two impetus is really quality improvement and then that workforce development. So making sure that no matter what type of shared service hubs are setting up throughout the state, those are the two main reasons that we really want to be part of and be using that shared service model. So we really set up a strategic plan of how to set up these hubs and how to start having those conversations. And our role at Children at Risk was really just to get people in the room, really to be the convener for the communities to figure out where their strengths were, where their weaknesses are, what would actually help in their community. So it wasn't that we were coming in with the fix or we were going to come in and do, but really more that we were that convener to really have those conversations, listen to providers, listen to what their needs were, and then figure out how to share that, how to get that hub started. So currently, and Houston's not on here, we added Houston, it was a mistake, but Houston's there too. But we are currently in our eight communities across Texas. They all vary depending on how far they are in that process. San Antonio is further along than I think all of us are. Some of us have ebbed and flowed. We're really strong earlier than this thing called the pandemic hit. And that's kind of took wind out of some sails. Some are still looking for funding. Some are just starting and convening at the table. So they're all at different stages, but those are the communities that are starting to have those conversations. And as you can tell, Texas is a big state, so we have a long way to go. But we are excited about the conversations that are currently happening. So I'm going to turn it over to Shay now to talk about that state perspective. All right, there's the.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Maybe. All right. So really in the work that we're doing at TWC is to focus on supporting the development of sustainable systems, both locally and at the state level, to help the business side of childcare, really focusing on increasing revenues, decreasing costs, improving iron triangle metrics, and improving quality. And we have various different initiatives that may aim at one or more of these, but with shared services and the way we're trying to think about it moving forward is to be really innovative around them all. And the two things I would say here that is important is we want to work at the local and state level. And we want it to be sustainable. Whatever money we put out there, whatever initiatives we get started, we want them to be able to move forward and be successful once a lot of this pandemic stimulus funding is spent. And so in 2019, we invested in childcare business software across the state, like CCMS. And some communities did a fantastic job with that. And we really were able to have some great lessons learned and some folks to look to of how to make, how this can work. Then the pandemic hit and we had to sort of pivot into what people needed immediately. And that is business coaching. We do have some of our coaches here in the audience. Hi, Civitas. They've done a fantastic job working also with two other Texas-based organizations, Avance and Carantis, and they have we offer free business coaching to any childcare provider. We have specialized coaching for centers and homes, and we meet them where they are. We help them with their immediate needs, like what is their hair on fire about, but also get to what are their really other business needs, some of which they don't even know you don't even know what you need until you can sit back and have someone teach you a little bit. So it's a kind of give and take relationship, and it's been very successful so far, and we're continuing that work. I mentioned earlier, we have a dedicated TWC staff person because we really want to be intentional about how we think about this. And it's no coincidence. We are the Texas Workforce Commission. Business is important to us. And so that's why it's one big reason that we're putting such an emphasis on the business side of childcare. And then, of course, we have these $24 million in grants to start up local shared services alliances. And so I have to say we're in the middle of the procurement for that right now. So I can't answer any questions. I can say what's on these slides. And we will be announcing those awards in the next few months. But this is for local communities. We said apply for up to $1.5 million per alliance that you want to get started. They're all going to look very different, and tell us what you need. And they can either expand some of these existing alliances that you saw or start up new alliances. We have included as well a procurement that's out there for technical assistance, because we wanted to allow people who are applying to start shared services alliances not to feel like they had to figure it all out themselves. We don't want them to spend time unnecessarily figuring out the things that many of us already know who have done shared services alliances. And so we wanted to so we have a procurement out now for bringing that technical assistance to support all of these local communities. And then another thing very important to us is to get some good data around it. Let's look at the number of hours per week that having your childcare management software saves. Let's look at teacher quality and teacher satisfaction and all sorts of different tangibles and intangible benefits of shared services as best we can. And so we are going to release an RFA also for an evaluation entity to look at these different alliances, and the alliances had to agree to work with this evaluation entity as well to be awarded. So it's going to be, we should have a lot of great lessons learned that we can share with you all over the next year or two. And that's the link where you can go read more about it. So we want these shared services alliances to also work with other investments. We don't want to be funding systems that are just going to operate on their own in a silo. We want them to work with our local Texas Rising Star, which is our quality rating system. We want them to work with their mentors and assessors. We also have invested funding in starting up pre-K partnerships, which Kathy will talk about. It's sort of a unique Texas solution to a problem not only we have, but that we have that a lot of other states don't have. She'll talk about that. And then contracted slots, y'all know what that is, but it's perfect to pair on top of shared services alliances and with those childcare programs. Early childhood apprenticeship programs. At the Workforce Commission, we have seen how apprenticeships can really move the needle in different fields that are struggling or historically low paying jobs. And so that's another initiative that we're very invested in and have an RFA out for that as well. And so we kind of want them all to work together. Scholarships and training investments. We don't want this $1.5 million for these alliances just to use something or to do something or replicate something that's already being funded in the community. So we're going to be sure that they can take advantage of what we already have available. And then capacity building grants. We've already released a few $1 billion in childcare grant money. And we're going to release some more to help develop childcare centers in childcare deserts to help build more that increase capacity for infants, infant serving centers and homes, and also employer site-based childcare that we see needed in some of our industries. So really, when we're thinking about all of these things put together, what we are really focused on is technical assistance, so that whatever we're putting out there, whatever people are starting up, we want them to be successful. The iron triangle, I think that is a data point that we can all start collecting better data on at different levels of government, whether it's for us to understand what's happening in the community, or for the providers, obviously, for them to have a better business and a stronger business. We want everything that we're investing in as best as it can to be sustainable, so that it doesn't require ongoing philanthropic funding or government funding. And then we want to collect data so that we know what we've done and that we can be accountable to it, and also tell a story and help other communities. So that's it. That's what we're doing at the state level. And I'll leave it to our other two guests to talk about their local alliances.
All right, just making sure I got the buttons correct. Okay, so in San Antonio, so our focus for our shared services initiative is really on quality and increasing the participation of providers into our Texas Rising Star system. So back in 2019, Pre-K4SA was already doing a lot to support child development centers. Our strength is in professional learning, so we were providing a lot of professional learning. We were also putting funding into centers as well to really help them to get to that Texas Rising Star status and really moving them through the process. In addition, United Way of Bexar County was also doing work with child development centers with funding and coaching and professional learning. So when Shay came to us about this opportunity called shared services, and we are very much still in a learning journey. I just really want to emphasize that.
And one thing, so that it's not confusing,
Cover yourself.
Kim used to have, I used to have Kim's job. And so I was at Children at Risk doing this work. It's not me at the state going, Larissa,
Yes, sorry.
saying, hey, Larissa.
Thank you for the Shay's like, I'm gonna get in so much trouble. Please stop talking.
Let her keep her job.
Right. So when Shay was at Children at Risk, she this new idea of shared services at the time, she came to San Antonio to tell us about this opportunity. And we really thought it would be a much more concentrated effort that we could better align our dollars and the work that we were already doing. So United Way and Pre-K4SA joined together, and we went out into the community. We did a press conference. We got the word out there, and 17 very brave providers signed up on their side and said, we'd love to take this risk with you. And, we really think that this is going to help our community. So we signed on 17 providers. 3 years later, we have the same 17 providers in our alliance. We're very excited to have them. They have been such an instrumental voice. They're the ones who drive all of the work that we do. And we're looking forward to them being a council as we move forward and expand our shared services in San Antonio. So we put some stipulations on providers that were going to come into our shared service alliance. So providers had to be serving subsidy children. They had to be working towards a TRS 3 or 4. Some of them already had that recognition, but many of them did not. And so as long as they were working towards that. And then once cost savings were realized, they must be willing to pay staff more in terms of their salary. And so we started off in our first year, like many shared services providers do, not knowing what we were doing, but also with doing some automation and ProCare. So we signed on with ProCare, and automation was one of our main focuses, is getting centers providers to go from paper and pencil, Excel spreadsheets into a CMS software system. We also provided technical assistance, so really sitting down along with coaching to help centers get onto an automated system. We provided professional learning. So this is something that we were already doing, but we really ramped that up. And it was 2-tiered professional learning. So we were looking at educators, at the early educators in the centers, but we were also doing director training and leadership training as well. In addition, we also offered a CDA credentialing program. So to really help improve the credentialing of our 3- and 4-year-old teachers, but also a specific focus on infants, toddlers as well. So we went out and actually got some funding from some local businesses in the community who put in about $25,000 the first year and $50,000 the next year that was focused specifically on infant toddler scholarships. So we gave out $1,500 stipends to infant toddler teachers, $500 $500 for passing their CDA course, another $500 for them to stay on site for 6 months, and then finally the last $500 stipend for them to stay for a full year. And I will say, even through COVID, we had a very high retention rate with our scholarship participants. So it was really fantastic. So we really focused on the professional learning, the credentialing and automation in our first year. And then in our second year, we started to expand to curriculum supports. So a bulk of our funding that we used was on helping centers to transition to a research-based curriculum. So we looked at HighScope, Frog Street, and Creative Curriculum as specific curriculums that they were using. Also, we funded student assessments. So many of our programs didn't have student assessments before, so we went to student assessments. We continued with the pedagogical coaching, and then we also hired on a business coach, which was super exciting. So we really were able to look at both business coaching and pedagogical coaching. We also shared services at Pre-K for SA. We have a marketing and advertising team. So they actually came together and we were doing advertising and marketing workshops, especially during COVID when staff turnover and staffing was a huge issue. And then finally, our biggest initiative was our substitute pool, which has been a challenge, but we have been able to keep it up and running. We're getting new substitutes every single month, it feels like, and that ended up relieving a lot of staff turnover issues in our provider centers. So those were really the main pieces that we have been focusing on, continuing to go deeper in. Our hope in these upcoming years is to share more deeper shared services. So actually sharing some RFAs on marketing, and really focusing on staff recruitment, especially during this time of COVID. And then of course, COVID came, and that was really difficult for our centers, although we were really happy to report that only one of our 17 centers ended up closing. However, they stayed in our Shared Services Alliance and are very excited to open up a new center in this upcoming year. So the camaraderie and the collegial nature of the Shared Service Alliance really helped them to get through that very, very difficult time. One of the things in this year that actually will be starting this spring is class assessments. So really looking at program assessments of our providers and being able to track that over time. That got interrupted with COVID. So we're excited to do our first class assessment this spring. We did a lot of data collection, really focusing on our iron triangle metrics, especially for our monthly data collection, looking at revenue, expenses, and also the time that administrative staff were allocating towards some of these tasks and really looking at whether or not they were saving time. We also do quarterly data collection as well. So really keeping track of enrollment and staffing, fee collection. We also have pedagogical metrics as well. So we're looking at student assessment data, class assessment data, and just looking at quality improvement overall over these next few years. This is another area that we really hope to expand and go deeper on, is really collecting success matrix and working with some of our colleagues across the state to really think about what those success metrics can really look like. So this is just an example. One of the great things that we heard in one of our fantastic ops exchange was really hearing Louise Sony say, keep it simple when it comes to the data and the tracking of the data, which we found extremely helpful. So this is just a very simple, like, monthly metric that we do. Our business coach goes in and really helps our providers to collect this data. And then we have a lot of individual business coaching with conversations with individual centers. But of course, when we report this data, we report it as Alliance data overall and really look at the metrics and how we're moving as a community. We are happy to say that we had all of our Alliance members are now in our TRS system. We have 76% of them are at a 3-4 star status, and we have a couple of them that are at a 2-star status and 3 that are pending at this point getting that. So we are really excited that we are moving people along in this quality continuum towards TRS. So one of the ways that we've really worked with our local workforce board is funding. So in our initial startup, they actually dedicated $40,000 to fund ProCare and the technology that was associated with that. We are now working across the city with multiple advocacy organizations to really align our efforts towards Texas Rising Star, coaches from Pre-K for SA and even United Way, working with our Texas Rising Star mentor and assessors to do warm handoffs with centers. So the whole process of going through and getting TRS rated is not a confusing, disparate process, that we really have a clear quality continuum for providers to move through. And then they participate in our shared services meetings. So we always have our workforce board there to give updates, which is really fantastic. We also have licensing and some of our other partner organizations that attend our meetings. And then of course, one of the ideas that we always give out to boards is that funding, like any way that we can get more funding for our alliance so that we can fund things like curriculum, professional learning, our sub-cost and assessments. And what we are looking forward to is building out a deeper sustainability model with our 17 centers. This upcoming year, we will expand to 40 centers, and then in our second year, another 40 centers. So our hope is to get to 100 centers over the next 2 years so that we can support them. And then also bringing in our family childcare centers, which we know are essential to our community and the work that they do. So we have partnered with Avance, and we are working with 23 family childcare centers and hoping to transition them into our shared service alliance as well. Great. And so I will hand it over to Kathy to talk a little bit about Austin.
Talk really fast. All right. Let's see, how do I move it? I'll start, but I want to know how to move this because I'm
Right there. Yeah.
no.
Right
I
there.
don't see. Oh, no. Okay, good. Sorry. Kathy McCourse, United Way. So as Shay mentioned, this may only be a Texas problem, but in Texas, our pre-K is funded only through the school finance formula, and there is funding for pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 that is half-day funding. It comes from our school finance formula allocated to our public school districts. What we have used the shared services model for is to try and create a shared services hub that facilitates creating mixed delivery system in our community. And I want to acknowledge that Chuck Cohn, raise your hand, Chuck. He is one of our amazing pre-K partnership childcare program providers. And so he can correct me or share with you a little more about the experience from the provider side. We launched this in 2019. Actually, we were in the planning stages before House Bill 3, which if you're from Texas, you know, changed a lot of the rules around high quality pre-K and funding. It had an interesting impact on our work. But what we have done is worked with our partner school district to create an in-district virtual charter school. So United Way is the administrative hub of this in-district virtual charter that allows us to access additional funding through Senate Bill 1882 and draw down these pre-K funds. They go through the school district to the United Way as the hub, and then we disperse them through the child care centers who we collect attendance and then invoices, and we pass through the dollars. They receive 80% of the per student funding. Our district keeps 10% and United Way keeps 10% to manage the hub. We are co-enrolling pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 students. Right now we had 12 providers. We've just added 2 more centers that will start with us next year. And just to date, this is an updated statistic. We have now leveraged over $2.8 million in school funding into community-based childcare programs. Now, a unique part of our model is that the teachers are employed by the childcare center. We facilitate supporting them to get a qualified teacher, and this enables them. Our model is really focused on empowering the quality and leveraging resources into the center, not just that pre-K classroom, but the dollars that they receive can be allocated, they're unrestricted. So as long as they're meeting the quality requirements, they can take those additional funds and increase compensation in the infant classroom, in the toddler classroom, et cetera. All right. So as the administrative hub, we have 4 staff members. So we have a principal. She serves as a principal would, and we meet regularly with the school district. We have a clerk, the registrar, who supports the child care programs in completing all of the enrollment processes and manages the data on the side for the school district. We have an operations coordinator who helps us with all of our contracting, the invoicing, getting the checks paid out to the child care centers, and we have an instructional coach. And what I had not mentioned at the beginning is prior to us creating the hub, child care programs individually had been trying to partner with the school district. And what we found was that that administrative burden of meeting the pre-K requirements on top of licensing, Texas Rising Star, et cetera. It was breaking them down. And our school district didn't quite understand, why is this so hard for them? Like, why is it so hard for them to comply with all of these different pieces? So we really kind of came in as the interpreter and then ended up playing this role as the administrator. And it's just the same as other shared services things where we're trying to take the administrative load off of the child care center director. In addition, the benefit of us being at the United Way is we do have a marketing team, like Larissa mentioned. We support with marketing for enrollment, for teacher recruitment. We tend to kind of recruit teachers, do an initial screening, and then try and play a match game with the child care center programs. We provided mental health consultation in partnership with a local nonprofit. We've been able to provide loan forgiveness scholarships for the teachers seeking certification, and they can actually, if they're a bachelor's degree teacher, receive their alternative certification through a paid internship in the classroom while we're drawing down those state funds. We've had various volunteers and donations. We have a partnership with a local construction company who's done facilities upgrades and done some, Chuck is nodding his head. It was a flooding project, if I recall. We do have a substitute teaching pool. It hasn't been quite as successful as Larissa's. And this year we actually launched a family council, and they got to vote on enrichment experiences that they brought to each center. And so the Austin Zoo has been visiting, I think it's our Nature Center visited center. So instead of a field trip, we bring the experience to the child care program that a lot of these programs haven't had an opportunity to have. So we tried to kind of carve out the benefits, and this is really more of the benefits you'll think of when you think of what does a mixed delivery system look like, right? Having high quality in community-based settings. Again, our pre-K program in the state of Texas is truly only funded for half day. And so a lot of times if a school district is offering a pre-K3 program, it's only 3 hours a day. And parents need transportation, they need after school care. So we're able to have parents who have one drop off and one pickup and that full day wraparound care on site. We are still challenged on pay parity. The amount of funding that we leverage is not enabling our childcare programs to pay their pre-K teachers at parity with the school district. So our model is somewhat becoming kind of a grow your own teacher program. Chuck is nodding because he's been really able to kind of facilitate recruiting teachers and saying, hey, come work with us for a couple of years. You're going to get certification. You're going to get a great experience in an intimate early childhood environment. And then we're going to bless and release you and go and earn a much better compensation rate. We don't want it to be that way, but if that's what it is, you know, we'll own it and move forward with that. Hopefully Chuck would agree that the child care centers, the additional per student funding is really essential, but they also come together. During COVID, we started weekly, they were monthly directors meetings, a lot of sharing of resources, coaching supports, networking. And again, the director keeps the authority kind of over that classroom. It doesn't feel like a kind of a drop-in model where a school district owns the pre-K classroom and everything else is part of the child care center. What we don't have on this slide is the benefit to the school district, but of course they get the additional enrollment and a percentage of the ADA funding. We are working with our local workforce board. We have priority enrollment for students that are enrolled in pre-K partnerships. They help us with recruitment of centers. Their mentors go out and talk about the benefits of being part of the partnership hub. And we share a lot of data and they share curriculum, help us support the centers with getting the curriculum. We're also doing class assessments and support the data and analysis of their teaching strategies gold work, which is our performance measure for the school district. So I think that's the last slide. Yeah. All right.
All right. So now we have time for questions. So fire away. I'm gonna look online, see if there's anything here. Yes, ma'am.
So my question is, you talked about sustainability. What are you doing right now? Like, what is the sustainability plan for, I was particularly thinking of the San Antonio model. So what is your sustainability plan for that?
Great question. So right now we are in a very privileged space that we can afford to take on these centers and take on more centers. Eventually we do want to turn some of the cost over to providers. Actually, Kathy and I were just having this conversation about that, but we also want it to be sustainable for them. And so right now, centers do pay into our substitute pool. So we find better rates, we train the subs, we do all the background checks, fingerprinting, all of those things. We house them, they actually come from the city of San Antonio, but they do pay for the subs hourly. And then as well as we do want to eventually get them onto, as we expand next year, we're going to give them one more year of this, but eventually they'll be paying for their CCMS system, which is ProCare. But other than that, we do want to keep the fees low and nominal to make sure that those costs are still retaining in the center. So as it is right now, we are able to take on those costs. We also have a lot of community funding from different businesses and also from our United Way and our workforce board. So it's been sort of a sustainable funding model for us right now.
So your intention is to be charging with that program?
We will do a cost analysis as we go into next year and we expand to really see what exactly the fee should be for being a member in our shared service alliance. We don't have those fees right now. They just pay those nominal fees for the subpool and ProCare, but we'll look at all of the package that we've really built out and think about what would be the best, most sustainable fee for our members.
Okay,
Okay,
and I'll
I've-
add to that a little bit, just from the, you can see in the RFA link on there, you can read through it, what the alliances that we're going to fund. An expectation is that there are membership fees paid into it by the end, but throughout that, the hub is operating leanly and efficiently, not being overstaffed so that they're not having more costs than are necessary. And then also that data is being collected and shared back with the providers. So for example, maybe every month or quarter, the provider is going to get a invoice for an amount of $0, but it will say, we have saved you $2,000 this month and increased your revenue by $500. And your fee for us would be $500 but we say, a net of 2,000, but right now we're going to collect $0. And like making sure that from the beginning, when all of this is subsidized, that they are very clear on how it's benefiting them and they're clear on that they're going to have to pay for it later. And so just setting expectations and being transparent is kind of, I think, what you're going for too.
I like that idea of the invoicing thing. I have one more add-on question to that. Sorry, I should probably shut up.
Sorry, Rose.
My add-on question just went out of my head.
All right, there's one online and then we'll go to you and then Rose, let me know if it comes back. Larissa, can you say more about how you capture the data monthly and quarterly?
Yes, so our business coach captures them. We have our metrics that we have for our centers. We give them an Excel spreadsheet. They fill out that Excel spreadsheet every single month, and then we track that data to make sure that they're actually filling it out. If there are issues, if there are problems, which of course are going to come up for providers, where they aren't providing that information, they've skipped a month, maybe even 2 months, we'll send someone down to actually sit side go through their books and make sure that we are getting the data that we are looking for. So right now, so sophisticated, it's called Excel. We just put it all in our Excel spreadsheet and we're keeping track of all the data. Hopefully we are looking for some sort of software system that can help us.
I was gonna say
house
that works when
more
you have 17
effectively.
providers.
Exactly.
As you grow to 100, more complicated. So in the back.
Hi, yeah, thank you. My question is for the Texas Workforce Commission. So you're allocating 24 million for local shared service alliances. Are your dollars coming from your CCDBG allocation, or are they coming from Department of Labor? Are you blending? Are they local state dollars? Are you tapping into any, what are the resources your state is tapping into to fund this type of thing?
I mean, they're all federal stimulus funds right now. So, I mean, they do come through CCDBG, right? But they're from the stimulus packages. One passed by President Trump right before his presidency ended, and then another stimulus package passed by Biden.
Okay.
ARPA. Yes, SURSA and ARPA.
Mandy's getting her steps in.
Oh, Mandy, go.
Oh, she asked your question? Okay.
Kathy, I'm curious to hear more about shared services from the standpoint of facilities and deferred maintenance. And I've not heard that talked about a lot today, but was really happy to hear that that's something that's happening.
So it's pretty low levels, just leveraging the relationship of the businesses expertise in the community. So this construction company wants to give back, and they asked us to identify projects throughout the year, I think a couple each quarter. And so we do some inquiries with our directors to find out what the needs are. And then we offer the potential projects to the construction company, and they tend to provide as much of the materials and expertise as they can. But I do think it's an opportunity to be thinking about how to leverage businesses in the community for what is their area of expertise and what can they provide that's not going to cost, that's going to support their bottom line, of course. And many of them want to use their services for good and give back to the community and not necessarily write a check. And so it's being creative about what are the capacities of the businesses within your community and matching them with the needs.
My question is also for the Texas Workforce Commission. I was just wondering if you could provide more information about your apprenticeship program. Are you working with Department of Labor, or is that something more homegrown?
Yeah. So these apprenticeship programs, so far there are 2 in Texas that are local. There's that are registered with the Department of Labor, 1 in Fort Worth and 1 in Houston. Our RFA for apprenticeship programs is to fund more local apprenticeship programs. Just to see, I mean, I know most of the success in other states has been locally, starting with communities. I'm only aware of really Pennsylvania that's made a sort of like very big statewide effort around apprenticeship. So I think we still have a lot to learn on how to scale. But yeah, so for now it's funding local apprenticeships. Mm-hmm.
Kathy, I have a question about the role that you all play in terms of enrollment, centralized enrollment or eligibility, and sort of how you're determining the number of slots that you need and then how you're allocating those slots.
So we're not that sophisticated. It's unfortunately more complex than we wish it needed to be, because subsidy enrollment is not a match 1-for-1 with pre-K eligibility. What we've learned so we're essentially hoping to enroll children that are already receiving subsidy or scholarship in the partnership centers. And we ask the parents then to fill out the pre-K enrollment paperwork on top of that. We have been working with our district and with state agencies to try and streamline this process since 2019. We are going to make progress one day. But one thing we have learned is we really look at the proxy, what's the parent copay. And so if their copay is over a certain amount, is that right? Then if it's under a certain amount, then they are going to be pre-K eligible. And so then we facilitate supporting them with that enrollment paperwork. And it is a barrier, because asking them when they're already sitting in a seat in a childcare center, or I forgot to mention, we also partner with our local Head Start provider to ask them to complete additional paperwork when in their mind, the parents' experience is not going to change. It has been very burdensome. So we continue to work at that. And we're hoping that in the long run, having some shared data in our systems and then long-term using CMS management systems will help us with that. We haven't been able to do that yet.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I didn't know you had the mic. Go for it. You and then.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought, is there a second microphone? Anyway, this question is for Larissa at San Antonio. I'm wondering, the chart that you showed clearly gives you some data that would give you a baseline that leads to a 1-year out, that leads to a 2-year out. Do you have that data in your in your head around how much on average those 17 programs, oh, I just thought you're probably doing these talks, so you may have it in your head. How much the average center is saving and how that might relate to the cost of, say, ProCare or some of these others, so that they can start to see that they can do the investment themselves, thinking about sustainability.
Absolutely. So unfortunately, I do not have those cost savings in my head. And one of the pieces that we want to get better at. So as Shay mentioned, thank you, our staff is running very, very lean. And one of the things that we are looking to, a position that we're looking to hire on for this upcoming year is a data analyst. So we've been collecting this data. We haven't done a super deep dive into the cost savings. We know how much we have expended in terms of the revenue that we're putting into the centers to really help them. Our focus has really been on quality. So, you know, are we getting them into the TRS system? Do they have a 3-4 star status? Do you have all the things that you need to even get into that program? So we haven't really done a deep dive into how much the savings cost is, but that's something that we want to look into and do next year.
I'm thinking more about a baseline around, I started out at 50% enrollment and now I'm consistently at 75%. I'm thinking more at the micro level than the macro level that you're describing.
Yeah,
Because that would be super valuable information to have, is in terms of writing grants and stuff in other parts of the country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Those are the types of data that we do want to collect as we go into next year.
Quick comment.
Go ahead.
This is just a comment to your issue around subsidy and the pre-K enrollment and having parents. You may want to check with Florida because they have combined the two.
Thank you. Eric, did you still have a question?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Not it.
This is actually for everybody. But since the beginning of your journey with shared services to the point that we're at now, have you encountered any policy obstacles or things that were done that sped up assisted, sorry, it's late, with the development of your hub model, for example, Kathy, and what are the existing challenges, or what could state, local authorities do to help maybe add some rocket fuel to what you're doing?
I'm not.
Does Eric want my laundry list?
Shay won't answer this, but the rest of us can.
Well, I would say for the pre-K partnerships and the hub, it is, you know, really around not having a clear alignment between that subsidy and pre-K eligibility. If that was 1-for-1, it would be a lot easier to predict because we need to have a certain number of subsidy eligible children enrolled to leverage sufficient ADA funding to warrant having a certified teacher in that classroom. Also, when we implemented this before House Bill 3, we were under a waiver to not have a certified teacher. We could have a bachelor's degree teacher. And that was, so if we had more alignment across the professional expectations for early childhood, getting someone an alternative certification degree in EC through 6 doesn't prepare them any better to be serving in a pre-K 3 classroom, just based on the content of that certification program. I'll stop there. I could go on.
One of the things that I'll say too is that as far as policies go, we talk a lot around the state, and as we partner with other shared services and exchange best practices around collecting those metrics, those success metrics, as we now, I think for a lot of us who started in 2019, who have a solid framework and we are collecting the data and we're going in there and we're doing a deep dive, is to use this data to advocate for wage compensation. So one of the things we have not pushed our centers to do yet, because we haven't really looked at that cost savings right now, is like get through COVID, stay open, get staff in there. But now that we have that and we have some sustainability, it's really looking at those metrics at the cost savings, getting centers to put that back into compensation and wages, and using that data at the state level, hopefully to advocate for better wages for our child development workers.
And just in case some of the other state folks don't know, here, could you talk a little bit about San Antonio's unique funding model?
For pre-K for SA, so we use a 1/8 sales tax to fund pre-K for SA. We're a voter-initiated organization. So back in 2012, Julian Castro, our then mayor, put this forth, and we passed the vote. It was very slim margins, and we had an 8-year referendum. We just went up for reauthorization this past November, and overwhelmingly, with 76% of the voters voted us back in for another 8-year referendum to use that 1/8 of the sales tax to fund our program.
City of Seattle has something similar.
Kim, I'm going to see if Chuck has anything to add to the conversation.
Go Chuck.
Yeah, so as Kathy mentioned, we participate in a pre-K partnership here in Austin. And one of the things I think that we've benefited from is a lot of the intangible stuff that you really don't think about. I think when we were assessing whether or not to become part of this, which it's pre-K, but really it's a shared service alliance. It really is. And so you can kind of quantify everything, but I'll just mention some of the intangibles. One is just that synergy of being able from a provider to have that provider to provider network with a lot of other people. Another good example, mentioned the education. Well, we have our pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 teacher that are getting ready to, they're going to have their master's degree in another month. So, I mean, the amount of quality that having two people like that at a subsidized daycare center, you know, to be able to trickle down to all the other people is just an incredible intangible benefit. And then finally, I'll mention crisis management. You know, we had Snowmageddon here. Well, Austin doesn't even own snowplows, I don't believe.
Nope.
But because of United Way and the pre-K partnership, we had an entire keg of beer kegs all in our playground with distilled water, and all the families could go there and just tap in and get as much distilled water when the town was, when all the pipes had burst over the course of 2 weeks. So, you know, I mean, there's like all those little things that shared services brings that are hard to quantify in a spreadsheet, but that are incredibly valuable. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Promise there's water in those kegs. So.
We didn't put that on our website.
Licensing, things that make licensing go,
Yeah.
Rose, did you think of your question?
I thought of my question. It's really very superficial. For the substitute pool, are you using a particular platform? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, great. We're using Community Scheduler as our platform. It works really well. We like it.
Thank you. I was just going to mention, we have ReadySub as a platform as well. Our problem is not having enough.
ReadySub?
ReadySub.
Question down here. I think that you're going to be the last one, Mary.
I was just wondering, what you sort of answered my question about increasing wages and how you plan to do that. But what are you doing in terms of your recruitment efforts in both either and or Austin and San Antonio?
We've been really working with our workforce board to have the mentors have that one-on-one conversation and say, hey, you're eligible if it's a 3 or 4 star to participate in this program. And we also have a calculator that I think now TWC has a calculator, so we can show the revenue. We can show kind of the process to go through. What is it? What would it require? How would this impact your funding? I think though that word of mouth and having other providers say this is valuable, this has meant a lot, really has a lot more influence than what we do to recruit.
I had 2 things and one just went out of my head, but one of the notes, okay. One of the ones is in terms of recruitment. So one of the ways that we are helping to incentivize people to come into the child development centers is helping with the quality of their programming. So one of the things that I forgot to mention is that we do things at Pre-K for SA that are curricular innovations. So we have this chef program where we're cooking with children inside of the classroom. We partner with Wolf Trap, which has teaching artists, and we've now put some of those and also our outdoor learning areas. So we've put some of these curricular innovations into our centers, and they're super excited, and they get to market that to staff and teachers who really want to come in and work at like unique programs with great pedagogical practices. So we've been doing things like that to recruit people. We've also are looking to do a job fair. So we do a job fair at Pre-K for SA. We will now partner with our child development centers to do a job fair as well, so we can co-sponsor it together to get folks in. So just kind of looking at ways that we can enhance the quality of the programs and the pedagogy that will also attract teachers to be like, we really want to work at this place. They're committed to children. They're doing great things. So that's one way we're working on that.
Thank you all. It is 5 o'clock. You made it. Have a great day. We'll be up here for a minute if you have individual questions, but thanks for being here. Enjoy your evening.